Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the November Power Hour. So glad to have you with me. Just want to apologize up front for having to reschedule this, but you will notice behind me that things do not look how they normally look. So I got a couch and a bare wall and a heater behind me. And the reason that I have a couch, a bare wall, and a heater behind me is because I got some water in my basement about 2 weeks ago. So I had a water softener system. It decided to die, and in its last effort of life, it spewed forth tons and tons of water. And yeah, all my drywall back there had to be ripped out, had to repaint the whole room. And yeah, so last Saturday, it was a war zone down here. And so I finally am to the point where I'm back down in my office. But I haven't got all the furniture moved in yet because I had the carpet cleaned yesterday. So I got to let that set for another day or two, and yada, yada, yada. Here I am, and I'm so glad that you're here, and thank you all for being able to reschedule. All right, so let's take a look at the comments here. So I'm glad a lot of regulars were able to make it. It's good stuff, and I'm committing to just doing a better job about communicating Power Hour stuff in 2023. I don't know what that's going to look like. I've been saying that for a while, but this time it really bothered me because it's like, man, I wanted to do it. All right, so .c, morning from cold Southern California. All right. Well, good morning, Dot. Good morning, Blester Messi. Good morning, Catherine. Good morning, Amori. Hey, good morning, Tim. And good morning, TextVet Jeb. Good morning, Stephanie. And Stephanie's working on a Cursed Dragon Detective Dragon novel. Oh, yeah, that's right. Happy Nanowrimo, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good Nanowrimo. I guess you're almost, halfway through the month at this point. So you should be somewhere, I guess, between 20 and 25,000 words at this point if you're hitting your goals of 16,000 or 1,666.7 or 1,667 words per day. So hope all my friends who are doing NaNoWriMo are having a good time. And Deborah working on a World War II romance for Nano and drinking iced tea. Christina working on my 1920s dark fantasy romance, 3,000 away from 50K. Good stuff. All right. I got so many comments in here. I can't get to them all, folks. All right. But just know that I do see your comment and I do feel the positive vibes. All right. Let's see here. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. So, unfortunately, it's what happens when you have your writing space in a basement. Nothing you can do about it. Queen Alina fan says 16,000 a day would be nice, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be nice? 16,000 words a day. I think I've done like 12, but 16,000 is just like insane. So I have a few announcements, and I actually have a lot of announcements. So I want to make sure that I get these in before we start writing because I want people to know about them. First things first, I'm making 2 appearances next year. And I know it sounds like next year, but you have to sign up for writing conferences early. So I am going to be at the Superstars Writing Seminar in Colorado Springs in February 8th through the 11th. This is a business seminar for writers. It's run by Kevin J. Anderson and his wife, Rebecca Mesta, and they do a really good job. And Joanna Penn is going to be there. Mark Leslie is going to be there. Dave Chesson, and a lot of other names that you might recognize. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not really looking forward to driving to Chicago. Or not Chicago, but I'm going to be driving to Colorado. So I'm not really looking forward to that in February. But if any of you are going to be there, please let me know. And I'll put a link in the description for anyone who's interested in learning about it. Actually, I'll just do it right now. So it's authorlevelup.com/superstars. So I'm looking forward to that. And then next thing I want to let everybody know is that I am also going to be in Oklahoma next year. It's kind of Oklahoma. It's not where you think a writing conference would be, but I'm going to be at the Oklahoma Writers Federation. I forget what the I stands for. It's OWFI, Alphi, but it's Oklahoma Writers Federation. I'll be there. I think it's May 4th through 6th. So I'll put a link to that as well in the chat, although I don't have a easy link for that one. So I'm looking forward to that. That's in Draft to Digital's backyard, as you guys know that they're in Oklahoma, and I think they're sponsors of the conference. So I'm going to be giving some talks there as well. And it also looks like I'm going to be going to Saudi Arabia in December, like in 2 weeks. So I'm going to a book fair there, and it's going to be science fiction and fantasy, and I'm going to be talking about self-publishing. So I highly doubt any of you listening are in Saudi Arabia, but if you happen to be there, please let me know. I would love to meet you. But yeah, I got a lot of things going on. So lots of conferences and stuff that are like happening right now. So I'll be on the road. I would love to meet any of you, especially Power Hour regulars. It would be really cool. And I have a final announcement, and then we can get into the writing. I announced it on my mailing list yesterday, but in case you didn't see it, I have written a sequel to Be a Writing Machine. So, you guys know I have a book. It's called Be a Writing Machine, Write Smarter and Faster, Beat Writer's Block, and Be Prolific. It's kind of my best-selling book. I wrote a sequel to that with all the lessons that I have learned since I wrote Be a Writing Machine in 2018. So it is done. It's edited. It's actually with my audiobook narrator right now. He is the same guy that did book 1 is doing book 2. And he is narrating that and hopes to have it mostly done sometime by Thanksgiving. So yeah, that's going to be out very soon, and hopefully I should have it out by end of the year. So just want to let you guys know that I'm looking forward to sharing that with you, because there's lots of stuff in there about writing on your phone, because I know you guys ask me about that a lot. I got a pretty extensive chapter on dictation, some stuff on writing into the dark. Productivity, mindset stuff, anything you can think of that I've kind of talked about in the last probably 4 years since I've written Be a Writing Machine will be in this book. And so I'm really excited about it. All right. So that is my news. I just want to let everybody know again, for those who don't know, if we have any new folks before we get into the writing stuff, I do want to let you know that I do have a discount for all my Power Hour friends. Anyone who purchases a book directly from me at authorlevelup.com, just use the code POWERHOUR, and you can get there at authorlevelup.com/books. All my books for writers, every single one is available with this discount code. And what I don't tell people is that there is no limit on this code. So this is just something that I give to my Power Hour regulars as a thank you for being here. All right, so we have a lot of people on the stream. So I explained in my mailing list yesterday, but for anyone who is new, these Writing Power Hours are live streams where I come live once a month. And it's an opportunity for everybody to write toward their work in progress. So you can work on your novels, you can edit your novels, you can browse the internet, whatever you want to do to be productive. All right. And I put a timer up on the screen. In the next few seconds, I'm going to throw a timer up. And it's going to count down to, it's going to be 20 minutes. And then at the end of that 20 minutes, we'll come back and we'll check in to see how everybody did. And there'll be some nice relaxing music, nice little image on the screen. And all my regulars, you know what to do. In case somebody comes in and says, what is this guy doing? You know what to do, and you can help me out in the chat. All right? So that's how we do it. And we do that 3 times. And then that's what we call a power hour. So it's actually 90 minutes. But I am also here to answer any writing-related questions that you have. Anything you want to know, anything you're trying to figure out, you can ask me, and I will commit to answering every question before I leave this stream. So you guys can keep me working sometimes, but it's fun. So I will make sure everybody's questions get answered before we log off today. All right? So with that, everybody, let's go ahead and get started and get into the first writing session. So everybody ready? All right, 20 minutes on the timer. Let's go.
Is everybody in the groove? Well, stick around. We're just warming up, baby.
Okay. How did everybody do? Let me know. Put your word count in the chat, and I will read those off as we go along. But we did get some questions that came in, and I want to address those and some comments as well. Stephanie says, leaks are no fun, but a couch, a bare wall, and a heater sounds like the beginning of a book. That's a good idea, actually. It might be a fun beginning of a short story, actually. Okay. All right, Ty asks, what's the thought process for using a pen name? So, Ty, I can hit this two different ways. The first is using a pen name just in general, and then I can talk about like some of my personal experience in using a pen name, a second pen name. So I use a pen name. Michael Laurent is not my real name. I use a pen name just because I have a professional career. And so when I'm searching for jobs, I don't want prospective employers looking up the fact that I have books, right? At least not intentionally. So that's one reason I use a pen name. That's my primary reason. But I probably wouldn't have that big of a deal putting my real name on something. But I think that's a compelling reason to do that. Also, just gives you some privacy. A few years ago, I dabbled in launching a new pen name, ML McKnight. That was a colossal failure, and the reason it was a failure for me was because what I thought I was doing is I was going to launch a new pen name for urban fantasy. And then what I would do is put all my urban fantasy titles in that pen name so that when people looked me up on Amazon or Kobo or Apple or wherever, they wouldn't see science fiction and fantasy and books for writers. Like it would be a more controlled experience. What ended up happening is that I found that it was too much work to maintain my Michael Laurent pen name, my ML Ron pen name for my writer's books, and then another pen name on top of that. So what I did is I ended up nuking that pen name and pulling all those titles that I had published under ML McKnight under Michael Laurent. And I'm just going to live with, having a bunch of titles. I think the thing to think about it, because the pen name thing, if you write, like if you want the privacy, that's another thing. If you want different pen names for different brands, as someone mentioned in the chat, just recognize that that's a lot of work, and it was too much for me. So what I've been focused on lately is I don't mind having everything under one pen name for my fiction. The thing I've been asking myself lately is, how do I get the right book to the right reader at the right time? And you can do that with branding. So if you happen to write across genres, maybe your romance books look one way, your sci-fi books look another way. I'm kind of oversimplifying it, but you kind of get the picture. Having separate pages on your website, making it really easy for people when they get to your homepage to know exactly what you write and then get them off to the books that they want, I think can be just as effective and a lot easier to maintain than different pen names. But you let me know if I didn't quite answer the question as you intended it. Okay, next question is from Jaden Farquhar. Recently got some great feedback about bringing more emotion from my characters. When done well, it really brings the story to life. What's your approach to creating compelling emotional moments? Yeah, Jaden, that's a really good question. Emotion is something I think about a lot when I'm writing. I don't necessarily think about it like consciously though. I don't say when I'm writing a short story or a novel, okay, I want this scene to make people cry. Because what I find is that when I try to manipulate the emotions like that, it usually has the opposite effect. It comes across as kind of dull. So my main focus anytime I'm writing is to stay deep inside the character's head, because the character is feeling the emotions. So through your word choice, through conveying what they're seeing through their eyes and the five senses, that's going to do a lot to impart emotions to the reader. So I'm writing a short story right now where I've got a monster hunter inside an abandoned factory, and he's hunting a ghoul, and his flashlight breaks. So he's hunting for this ghoul in the dark, and he's kind of afraid and he's kind of terrified, but he has to keep going. So what's going through his head? What is he seeing? What kind of imagery can I use that will make the reader say, "Oh, that's kind of scary," right? That's to me how you can really impart the emotion, as opposed to saying, "I want people to cry, I want people to laugh." Just do it organically throughout the story, and you'll find that you may get better results. Okay, Catherine, what's the best way to plan out a book, then have more details when you write it? Well, Catherine, I am a pantser, or a discovery writer, as more civilized people like to say, and I just write. I do my very best to write the story as best as I can the first time, and I try not to have to come back and add details. Although it does happen. I guess if you are one of those types where you want to write down a bare bones story and then come back later, my best advice is to write as best as you can so that you don't have to come back and rewrite. It's one thing to come back and have to fill in details. It's another thing entirely to come back and have to rewrite the entire story. So cleanliness is my biggest tip on that. Okay. Let's see how everybody did here. Okay, the words are coming in. All right, TextVet Jeb, Jonathan, 180 words. Let's see. Martha, 568. Queen Alina Fan, 500. Blester Messi, 424. Cora, 250. Emori, 329. Wyland, 418. Oh, everybody's doing well. Everybody's doing really well. All right. All right, Haley did a quick research for a corn on the cob recipe. Yeah, it's funny when we hear, it's funny when you see like fiction out of context. People are like, what the? Corn on the cob. All right, I love it. DCJ has a comment. I use a pen name because it's easier than my real name, and I'd like to avoid any one copier since it was made up by my dad. Yep, and then the separation of a personal and career. Yeah, I think that's important. Right? So Queen Alina, to the pen name thing, says, yeah, unless it's your main job, it's nice for people to not be Googling you and find out, oh, this person was a security guard or cashier when they see your LinkedIn with your real name. Yeah, absolutely. Separation of personal and career, I think, is good. Okay, great. I'm glad I answered your question, Ty. And then Amy says, I feel somewhat liberated by an alter ego. Yeah, you definitely can do things with your alter ego that you couldn't do with your real name, right? All right. Focus Creative. Does every character in my novel need an arc? Does it make them one-dimensional if they don't? This is one of those things where I think advice sometimes can be misguided. Every character in your novel does not need an arc. I don't even think about arcs when I write stories. And this is just, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second. I think that character development is more important. So character development is what happens to the character and how the character reacts. Over the period of a novel, a character can grow or not grow. They don't necessarily need to have an arc. Like to say that a character has to start off as a whiny little jerk and then they kind of come to the end of a novel and they're suddenly more worldly and more empathetic. That's great. But not all characters are that way. Like when you start getting into the trenches of warfare, you find that some characters really don't grow that much over the course of a novel or a series, but they do amazing things. And those things do help shape them and shape their experiences, but it's not necessarily a character arc. So if you want to talk about arcs, I think your main character should have an arc, absolutely. I think it's sometimes helpful to think about a villain's arc as an inverse of the main character's arc, but I really don't think about that much. I just try to focus on what is the character doing, how are they reacting to it, and I find that readers react a lot better to that than as opposed to kind of plotting out an arc. But that's Michael Laron's opinion only. I would love to know what you guys think about that. Okay. Awesome. Okay, got a lot of comments. I wish I could get to all these comments. I love it, everybody. Okay, let's see here. Okay, DCJ, I still have trouble understanding what an arc is. An arc is essentially how a character's personality changes from point A to point B, right? So you have a character that is in the beginning of a story, like Harry Potter, starts off as kind of a mopey wizard learning to be a wizard, but by the end of the series, he is assertive, a hero type, and has learned how to master, wizardry so that he can defeat Lord Voldemort. So I think about it like that. I mean, you could definitely put little points on the arc of Harry's different development, but to me, I always think about arcs as where's the character now and where are you going to take them? Where do they end up at the end of the story? So yeah, it does refer to growth throughout the story as well. Okay. Yeah, Jonathan has a good comment. I envision an arc as a change. Characters can grow or regress. They don't always have to mature. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And if you look at like detective stories, detective novels, like a Harry Bosch or an Alex Cross, I don't necessarily know that they grow a whole lot throughout the series. I mean, they do, but there's no point A to point B. So if you've got an open-ended series, it kind of throws the theory of an arc out the window in many ways. Yeah, perfect. Okay, all right. So, folks, let's jump into our next session. I want to make sure that we get everything going here. So we're gonna put 20 more minutes on the timer, and let's get started. All right. Second session down. Let's see how everybody did. All right. Word counts in the chat. Let's go through the questions that came in the meantime. First question is from Wyland. Do you have any personal philosophy or approach to Chekhov's gun? Yes and no. I think the most important thing with Chekhov's gun is just to make sure that there's nothing in the story that doesn't need to be there. So if you think about it like this, it's kind of like art. When you look at a painting, you see immediately what the artist wants you to see. So the artist might want you to focus on fine details in the person's face or on their dress or their hair or whatever. But if you look at the background, it's not as nice. Like they don't focus as much on those details because they want to draw your eye to the subject of the painting. It's kind of like that with writing. You really only want readers to see what you want them to see. So to use a silly example, if there is a gun on the fireplace, right? Why would you mention that unless they're not going to use the gun, all right? Or unless it's not some detail that's germane to what you're doing. So I just think about it like that. So as you're writing your story, just be asking yourself, am I going to be using this in the future? And then as you get through your story, you may find that there may be some things that you don't need. And so you can go back. And if you think that the reader, if you as the author drew the reader's attention to it, but it doesn't pay off, then you may want to just change the image or change something subtly so that the reader focuses on what you want them to focus on. That's how I would think about it. Okay, Tim asks, can you describe what theme means to you? Yeah, I mean, theme is ultimately it's the overarching value that the story is about. All right, so valor, loyalty, honor, the kind of the big things that you think about when you think about themes. And certainly you can be intentional about your theme. Other times I find that theme just kind of, it happens organically. I've been writing a lot of short stories lately, and I just don't think about theme when I'm writing the story. But when I get to the end, it's like, oh, okay, that's a really cool theme. I didn't think about that. I wrote a coming-of-age story, and there was a theme, and it was right there at the end, and I just missed it. I didn't see it. But then when I went back to look at the story, it was all there. So I think if you trust yourself, I know I've been saying that a lot. I've been kind of hinting at that a lot, insinuating at it, that as long as you just trust yourself to write the story, things like theme and character arc and character development and growth, all that tends to happen organically. All right. Let's see how everybody did here. All right. Jonathan 204, Queen Alina 440, Cora 420, JC 202, and Haley says only 184. Today's going slow. Hey, it's early in the day, Haley. I know you got it. You got it. All right, Blessed 488.442. All right, Martha 624 and finished the first draft of my latest podcast episode. That is great. All right. Queen Alina says, it does feel lucky when the theme comes through naturally rather than it feels like it's me saying it. I know that I'm saying it in both cases, but it does not feel, you don't want to nag. Yeah, that's absolutely it. That's why I just try not to pay attention to it. And then it comes out organically. And if it doesn't, then, just let the reader kind of think about it. I think that readers at the end of the day, they don't really, I mean, the theme is certainly something that they talk about with their friends, but I think really they're more interested in the character and then secondarily the plot. All right. Blessed or Messy, are you doing anything with Kindle Vella? I'm not, Blessed or Messy. I'm trying to, my problem is that I do too much. I've gotten a lot better at it over the years. Over the past 2 years, I've come a long way. I've cut a lot of things out, and I've really narrowed my focus. And so I'm just keeping my blinders on. I know that there are some people who watch this Power Hour who have done very well on Kindle Vella, but it's just not something I'm really paying much attention to, and that's just a personal choice. But if it's for you, then definitely check it out. Look at the practitioners. who are doing it and see what they're doing and how they're being successful. But yeah, Kindle Vella. I've talked about this a few times. I have some problems with Kindle Vella as well. Amazon had this opportunity to do something like Kindle Vella like 10 years ago, and they didn't take that opportunity. There were a lot of people writing serial fiction 10 years ago. A lot more people probably than people think. And Amazon, I think, could have come out with a tool back then and struck while the iron was hot. But they didn't do that. I mean, again, I'm sure they had their reasons for doing it, and I'm not going to throw too much shade on Amazon, but it is very real. So, yeah, we'll see how it does. Hopefully, it's successful, and those of you who are using it, I hope that you're making money and finding readers. Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and jump into our last session, and then, as you all know, I'll stay on and we can shoot the breeze as long as you want. All right. So, third writing session. Let's get it started, and it begins now. All right, we did it, everybody. I want to know what's your word count and then your word count for the day. All right, so how many words did we collectively as a community write and get some writing in? All right, so I forgot to mention this, but I'm working on a short story right now. I'm doing the Ray Bradbury challenge, so I want to write 52 short stories in a year. I'm averaging about a story a week, but some weeks I've been doing 2. So I'm also going to do 1 million words over the next year. So I've got myself a hell of a writing challenge. 1 million words plus 52 short stories. So I might blow a gasket here and there, but so I'm working on that today. Okay. Next thing here. Okay, so let's look at some questions. Okay, DCJ, like someone else said, I get really confused about theme and plot. Okay, so I'll try to simplify this as much as I can. So plot is what happens in a story. So the character goes to the supermarket, then the character gets in their car and gets a phone call, then the character goes home and gets surprised by a ghost. Like, all of those things happening are the plot. So the plot is just simply what happens, all right? The theme is the overarching, emotion or a value that the plot embodies or that the story embodies. So the character doing all that, that's just a kind of a disjumbled, thing that it's not really that helpful. But if the point of the story is, if the theme of the story is making sure that you are present, all right? So then you could say the story about the character is this character is going through the supermarket, they're on the phone, and maybe their kid is in the back seat, and they're not present with their kid. And it takes getting scared by a ghost for them to realize that life is short. I don't know. I'm being silly. I'm being facetious. But the theme is think loyalty, think valor, think honor, think karma. What goes around comes around. I mean, all of those things are what karma is. So theme is usually the end result. It's the characteristic that readers take away. All right. So like a fable is a really good example of a theme. At the end of a fable, you learn a lesson that is supposed to make you a better person. So think about it like that. You let me know if that helps, if that simplifies it a little bit. Okay, Wyland, what part of being an author do you dislike most, and what strategy do you use to deal with that? All right, so what do I dislike the most about being a writer? I will say the thing I dislike the most is just the sheer amount of things that I have to do on a daily basis. Now, the things I have to do, I don't really mind, but there's just not enough time in the day. And, I'm somebody that, I consider myself to be pretty productive with my time. And even I find that it's just impossible to get everything that I want done in a day. So how I have addressed that is I really focus on strategy. So I have determined, 3 major things that I want to focus on every day, come hell or come high water, and everything else just is what it is, and I'll find time to do it when I find time to do it. All right. So by basically settling on and prioritizing the things that are the most important, that allows me to stay engaged, allows me to stay productive, and then it allows me not to fret so much about the little stuff. So my 3 goals are become a world-class content creator, become a technology and data-driven writer, and become the writer of the future. So inevitably, the activities that I'm doing every day are geared toward that. So I have an acronym that I follow. You all follow my blog. I have an acronym that I follow that guides what I'm doing every day, and it fits within those strategic elements. So I'm usually always reading. I'm analyzing data to get some sort of insight, or using technology to gain some sort of insight into my writing and how to be a better writer. I am marketing, and I am writing new words. All right, so reading, analysis, marketing, and production, ramp. So I ask myself every day, what am I doing to ramp up my writing career? And when I find that I do all of those elements, all of those things, I'm serving my bigger strategic priorities. So set your strategic priorities and then set your tactics within those. And if you do it right, all your dogs should be pulling in the same direction. So kind of a long answer to your question, Wyland, but hopefully it answers it a little bit. Okay, next question was from Luana. I had it and then I lost it. Okay, there we go. What is easier, outlining or pantsing? Pantsing all the way. What I would say is this is ultimately comes down to personal preference. You all know that I started outlining, but then I moved into pantsing / discovery writing and never looked back. So I have experience in both realms. One of my most popular videos on my YouTube channel is how to outline your novel in 10 ways. And it's really ironic because I no longer outline. And I wrote a book called The Pocket Guide to Pantsing that essentially is my manifesto for discovery writing and pantsing. So as to which is easier, let me reframe the question a little bit. What are the pros and cons of each in the context of your question, Luana? So if you're outlining, the pros of outlining is you know what's going to happen. All right, so you know what's going to happen. It gives you a level of safety and security because even if you run into writer's block, you have a sense of what comes next. And for some people, that gives them a level of comfort. All right. Now, the big con of outlining is that you know what's going to happen. So you can get bored. All right. Second thing is if you don't know if you know what's going to happen, then it's possible that the reader is going to know what's going to happen as well. So just some things to think about. And I'm just scratching the surface about outlining. Now, when you go to pantsing has different pros and cons when you compare it to outlining. The pro of pantsing is that it saves you time when you do it right. So you can sit down, start writing a story, and go off to the races, and you don't have to spend all that time outlining the story because you're going to get a good story at the end. All right, that's one of the biggest pros, I think, to pantsing is the time savings. Another pro to pantsing, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't know what's going to happen, then your readers probably aren't going to know what's going to happen. And just to keep everything parallel. So then the cons of pantsing, one of the cons is that emotionally, if you've never done it before, hope you all forgive me for speaking a little French, it can be a B word. All right? It really can because you will second guess yourself. You will doubt whether your story is going to be good. The first one sucks. Then you get used to it. All right? You get used to it. So you make a little bit of a short-term sacrifice to essentially get to the promised land because when you master pantsing, you can sit down, write a story, finish it without that anxiety of, is this going to work? Is it going to work out? And then usually, if you pants and if you do it correctly, you can finish a novel a lot faster, especially if you write it in one draft. All right? So just some things to think about. And if you haven't checked it out, check out my book on pantsing, and that'll answer a lot of the questions. But it really depends on the person. It really does. Okay. All right, Jonathan, looking at 251 with a 1,600 for the day. All right, Nicholas says that's a cool challenge. Yes, it is, and oh boy, it is complicated. So I'm tracking my word counts every day. So for anyone who reads my blog or my YouTube community post, authorlevelup.com/blog, or just look at my community tab on my YouTube channel, you will see how many words I've written, and then I also have some analytics in there that show me how many words I am over or under the goal, how many days I am ahead, that sort of thing. So if anyone is a numbers geek, you can kind of dig into that. I have an Excel sheet that I update every day, and then I just paste those values into my blog posts. So I think I'm at about 11, maybe 12 short stories so far, which is about 20% of the challenge, and I'm only about 60 days into this challenge. So I think I can do it. I think I can actually get it done early, but yeah, we'll see. Okay, Haley, 346 and 805 Stephanie 518-1258, Cora 531, 1000, Queen Alina. Those are some good numbers as well. Just going to put the numbers on here. Martha found the whole thing very productive. That is great. And Wylan, total word count would be around 700, but ended up deleting a lot, not feeling well, and just not writing well. Well, hey, Wylan, I hope you feel better. And just remember that the words you're writing may not be as bad as you think. It could just be your mental state. So just keep that in mind. All right, Stephanie Del Porto Fantasy. Very inspiring. Well, thank you, Stephanie. And love to write. I have to abandon Nano because I'm trying to get out my Christmas pre-order by November 29th. Yeah, that's a pretty aggressive deadline. Dot, those are some good numbers. Tim, those are some very good numbers as well. Stephanie says, great googly moogly, a million words. Yes, Stephanie. Actually, I'm planning on writing 1.2 million words. So how am I doing that? It's the next question people ask. Well, this little thing right here, size of a candy bar, but it's really helping me, voice recording and dictation. All right, so when I go walk my dog, I stick this in my pocket, and I have a little lapel mic that I hook up to it. I put that on my collar, and I start talking as I walk my dog. And I walk my dog several times a day, so I think my dog is the biggest winner of this challenge. Whether I win or lose, I think my dog wins. So, and then I also dictate when I'm driving, when I happen to be in the car alone. I do it safely. I don't do anything crazy, but I do get some words in that way. I also dictate when I'm doing dishes, when I'm doing laundry. So there's lots of opportunities for me throughout the day to get words in. And then when I'm out and about and can't dictate because I'll look like a crazy person, I write on my phone. All right. So, and then when I'm home and I'm just chilling at my desk, I type. Or I might dictate too. So there's a lot going on here. But I am if I succeed, I'm only going to do this if I succeed. But if I succeed, I will write a book about everything that I did to restructure my life around this challenge and get it done. All right. But if you're interested, just check out my books. Be a Writing Machine and Be a Writing Machine 2 will address a lot of the things that I've done. Okay. Nicholas, I got more detailed outlining done. By the way, my 2 novels came out. Well, hey, that's great, Nicholas. Be sure to. I don't know if it'll let you do this, but give it a shot. Try to put a link to your books in the chat so for folks can check them out. Okay, JC 224. All right, Christina 4:30, but was dividing my time. Hey, that's how things go. All right. Let's see. So many comments. I wish I could get to them all. Amy, 30 words, but wow, I'm really pleased with them. Okay, good. As long as you're happy with them, that's the thing. All right. Okay. Matthew, looks like you got a draft to digital problem. When I upload my Google file as a docx file to draft to digital, blank pages occasionally appear between chapters. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there, Matthew. I would reach out to the draft to digital team. My guess is that it's probably something inherent in your formatting. So, when it comes to formatting and it comes to issues like this, the best thing to do is usually to fix the problem at the source. And my guess is that there's something going on when you're exporting from Google Docs to docx that's causing that problem. But that's just, haven't been through this a few times. I haven't had that exact problem, but that's probably what it sounds like it's happening. Okay. Love to write. Yeah, it's so hard to do all the things that an indie author needs to do. Yeah. I mean, we don't have unlimited time. We don't have unlimited money. And so really it comes down to the prioritization of what's important. Okay, Jonathan, there's still a lot of discovery when using the basic outline. I always learn things that are not in the outline when writing scenes. Yeah, I mean, I like to think about it as it's a mental model. It's called the map is not the territory. So you can look at a map of a place, right? And you think like if you look at a map of Chicago, you think you know what Chicago looks like. But that's a very different experience than actually being on the ground and walking through Chicago, right? So the map is not the territory. So even if you outline your novel, that's not ultimately how the novel is going to go when you actually get your boots on the ground. And what I have found is I just would rather just put my boots on the ground and worry about the map later. Because usually what ends up happening is it all ends up working out in the end. And I think that's because, we've read enough stories, we have internalized story enough, and our muse, creative voice, subconscious, whatever you want to call it, I think knows what it's doing. And I think it ultimately leads us to where we need to be. So I am a big fan of just putting my boots on the ground and fighting the warfare. I'm good with the hand-to-hand combat. I don't necessarily need a map or an outline to tell me where I'm going. But yes, you will learn a lot. And what you outline, ultimately, there are going to be nuances and things that you fill in when you start writing. All right. Nicholas says, 11 to 12 short stories in 60 days, crazy. Yes, it is crazy. And that's not even the half of it, my friend. So there's some really crazy stuff I've been doing over the last 60 days that's like, man, what am I doing? But, that's what you do when you're a writer. So I'm writing so fast that I have to find ways to keep up with myself. So like I'm writing so many words every day that like I have to find ways to make sure that the words are I'm almost writing myself out of ideas, essentially. So like I finish a short story and it's like, oh, snaps, what am I going to write next? Okay, I need to write another short story. What is that going to be about? Okay, now I wrote another short story. Okay, now what am I going to write? Or like when I get to the end of a day, like it'll be 11 o'clock and I've just finished a short story and I've only got 1,000 words for the day, but I've got to write at least 2,750 words every single day without fail, which is kind of nerve-wracking. So like if I finish a short story and it's noon, I got to start something else. Like I got to find another 1,700 words. Like that's where it gets hard. Like figuring out what to write is not too bad, but it's the constant juggling is the hardest part. Okay. Well, thank you for the kind words, some of you in there. I just have to stay busy. That's my thing. Wyland says, finally got around to starting Old Dark. It's amazing so far. Not at all what I was expecting. Well, I'm glad. I really enjoyed that series, so hope you enjoy it, Wyland. Wyland asks, what kind of dog do I have? I have a Bichon Shih Tzu mix. So I guess she's known as like a teddy bear. I think she might be like 10 pounds. So she's a little dog and thinks she's a big dog. So yes, indeed. Okay. Nicholas says, did that link come through? I'm not seeing it. So Google might be suppressing it. See if I can find out another way to get that to show up if I can, Nicholas. Sorry about that. All right. TextVet Jeb, what name are you publishing under? Michael Laron. Michael Laron for my fiction and ML Ron for my nonfiction. So no new pen names, none of that. It's all going to be under Michael Laron or ML Ron. And the majority of what I'm writing is fiction. So I've actually submitted some short stories to magazines. I got one acceptance already. I can't announce what it is yet, but I got one acceptance to a magazine, and then I placed twice as a silver honorable mention in the Writers of the Future contest. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. That's it's a really prestigious contest that does a really good job of you can send your short stories to them. They review it very quickly, and then if you place, you get a cash prize. There's no catch or anything like that. It's completely legit. Cash prize, and then if you are a finalist, they actually fly you out to LA, and there's like an award ceremony and all this stuff. And the two stories I sent got silver honorable mention, which is one step below like placing in the competition. So I'm trying. I'll get there. All right, Wyland, do you do a Thanksgiving feast? If so, what's your favorite dish? I'm curious for my cookbooks. Yeah, I used to, I shouldn't say because I'm not a very good cook, but our family used to do a lot of big Thanksgiving feasts. I'm just always a turkey guy. I like white meat. So turkey and gravy and mashed potatoes is kind of my favorite. I'll tell you what I don't like. I'm not a cranberry sauce person. So if there's even a drop of cranberry sauce on my plate, I can't eat the plate. Just can't do it. I can't stand the smell. I don't know what it is. So probably way more than you wanted to know, Wylan. All right. Amy, thank you for joining. And let's see. Okay, Nicholas Cato Strode, books are on Amazon. Yeah, what is your pen name on Amazon, Nicholas? Put that in there. If it's the same, then everybody knows. Go look up Nicholas Cato Strode on Amazon, and you can check out his stuff. Okay. Matthew, turns out if I download my Google DocX file, the file unformats because I don't have any compatible. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's exactly the problem. You may want to try like downloading like a LibreOffice or something like that to where, maybe that will be able to read the file. But yeah, I bet you could probably figure out the answer to that on a forum somewhere. Focus Creative, ever considered writing a comic book series? I have, but there's just a lot that just seems to me like a pain. I really love comics. I'm actually reading some comics right now that I really like. But yeah, because you gotta write it, and then you've got to illustrate it, and then you got coloring and lettering. It just seems like a lot to me. But I'm not really initiated into the world of comics. But it feels like a team sport, and with a sport like that, it seems really expensive to me. But that's just me. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, thank you guys for the honorable mentions. I see some of you have been participating in it too. So if you're not familiar, if you've never heard of it, I'll put a link to it. It doesn't cost you any money. It doesn't cost you any money at all. You can submit once a quarter, and you get feedback within about 90 days. All right, and that's if you've ever submitted to magazines, you kind of know. Like the problem with magazines is they don't get back to you quickly. So like I have every story I've written, I've got out to a magazine right now. So like I've got the market cornered, with story submissions, and it takes forever for them to get back to you. So it's kind of nice that you're going to hear back from them within like 60 to 90 days. All right, Matthew asks, what kind of books do I write? Science fiction and fantasy and self-help books for writers. Love to Write says, dang, I love cranberry sauce. Sorry to dash your dreams. If you want to unsubscribe from the channel, I understand. I'm just kidding. All right. Okay, Nicholas says, yep, it's my name. The series is called The Doom Brass Cycle. The first book is Either Way, and the second is Killing Corona. Epic fantasy stuff. Awesome. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Nicholas. And that goes for everyone on this stream. If you have a new book launch, please let me know. And put the name of your book in there, and I'll put it on the screen, because I bet there's people here who like to read urban fantasy or epic fantasy. So, love to help support you guys if you finish a book. Okay, .c says, thanks so much for doing this. It gives me a boost, and I look forward to it. Yeah, I look forward to it too. I love Power Hour days because I feel like I get so much done. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Nicholas says Writers of the Future, they're related to Scientology. I believe they are, but I don't think that this is affiliated with that group. So I don't think they're trying to convert people to Scientology. I think they're trying to help writers get exposure. And a lot of the writers that we know and love, like Brandon, I think Brandon Sanderson won placed in the contest. Patrick Rothfuss, Nnedi Okorafor. It's like a training ground for a lot of writers that end up to do great things, and I think that's cool. I think that's really cool. All right, Love to Write says, it's okay. We all love different things. I still love you. All right, well, good. It's good stuff. All right. There's something else I was going to tell everybody here. Anybody that uses Dragon, anyone that uses Dragon, if you've never used the auto transcription agent, definitely check it out. I started using it this past month, and it has been a game changer. So like I can go on my voice recorder, I can go out with my dog and dictate, and then come in, and then I've got a workflow on my computer set up. I had to use a bunch of apps to do this, but I can hook up my voice recorder to my computer, and then the auto transcribing agent automatically pulls the file from my voice recorder and then starts transcribing it. So like I can plug in my voice recorder, go get a cup of coffee, and by the time I come back, the file is transcribed. And it's kind of amazing. All right. Okay, Love to Write says, I always love watching your videos. They are such a shot in the arm. By the way, I write urban fantasy under Lizzie Ann Love. That's great. Nice to meet a fellow urban fantasy writer. All right. So I'm going to go through and look for any last-minute questions. Any questions that folks have. And while I wait for those to come in, I want to let everybody know that the next Writing Power Hour will be on Saturday, December 3rd. All right? Saturday, December 3rd. So we're going to be back to the first week or first Saturday of the month, and that will be the final Power Hour of the year, which is kind of crazy to think about. All right, let's see here. Miss Swift, I live and die by voice recorder and transcription feature. It rocks. Yeah, I mean, it's the only way to write, like, for me now. Like, I wish that I hadn't been so hard-headed a few years ago, and I wish that I would have explored it. Like, it has exploded my word counts in a really big way. Let's see. Okay, Jonathan, anyone else have editors refuse to edit your work if it was voice-to-text transcribed? No, but that's because I don't tell them. If you write that way, don't tell your editor that you do it. I mean, here's the thing: if you dictate with Dragon, and if you're going to do that, I recommend using Dragon because I don't know necessarily the quality of other voice to text software, but it's probably not as good as Dragon. So if you're using something like Google Voice, or kind of your built-in dictation software on your phone, you're going to get crappy results, and it's going to take you a lot longer to edit those. Whereas if you just use Dragon, the transcription is pretty good, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to edit anyway, right? And what I have done, and I'm kind of a unique creature in this regard, but I share this with people so that people know what's possible. I use Microsoft Word macros to also help me clean up my text as I'm dictating. So I wrote about this in my book, How to Dictate a Book. You can check it out if you're interested. But essentially, I dictate my stories, and I have these commands that I say while I'm dictating. So like if I'm in the middle of a sentence and I goof it, I'll say Pikachu, period. And then when Dragon is transcribing, it'll put the word Pikachu, period in there. And then what I do is I have a Microsoft Word macro that looks for every instance of the word Pikachu, period, and then what it will do is it will delete the whole sentence. So it basically will take a sentence that you goofed and delete it. And so I have all these commands that I've learned to use, and it basically allows for a lot cleaner text. So if you don't have something like that, which I don't imagine most people do, you just have to spend a little bit more time editing. But at the end of the day, it's going to come out, pretty clean and polished, and your editor shouldn't know that you did voice to text transcription. But yeah, don't tell them. Don't tell them that you do that. Let's see. Yeah, someone mentioned, you've got to clean it up. All right, so let's see. Jonathan says he claims he could tell. I'm curious about that. If he says he claims he could tell, first question was he right? And if he was right, what could you do next time to make sure that he couldn't tell? I think that's the $1 million answer. Matthew asks, what is dictating? Dictating is the process of speaking your story into a device, such as a voice recorder or a microphone, and then a software takes your voice and turns it into text as if you typed it. And it is all the rage. Martha says, I strongly disagree. Oh, when I was talking about the built-in dictation, it is pretty good, Martha. I'm not going to lie to you. It is pretty good. Where it starts having problems, though, is with things like proper nouns, especially if you're doing fantasy or science fiction. Also, it doesn't allow you to format your text on the go. At least last I checked. I could be wrong on that. But so when it comes to giving you like the full package experience, it doesn't always give you that, but it is pretty good. It's come a long way in the last few years. Ms. Swift, I've used several. Dragon is the best, but can be resource intensive. Yes, it is. Ms. Swift, I'm curious, what other apps have you used? Because I always talk about Dragon because that's what I use, and I just happen to think it's the best, but it definitely can be resource intensive. Okay, so Jonathan says, well, I don't use it. I type everything. Oh, okay, so it sounds like this editor claims... Yeah, that's not an editor you want to work with. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if... I might put my foot in my mouth here in a minute. At the end of the day, who cares how you wrote the story? As long as the story can be edited, right? So, yes, some people don't have as big of a command of English spelling and grammar as other people. Doesn't mean that they're worse writers. It just is what it is. And some people just really struggle with the mechanical aspect of writing. To me, that's not... I don't know, that's not grounds for disqualification, but it means that person might pay more, you know, because it's gonna command more of the editor's time, right? So I think that's why I've always said, you know, that it's incumbent upon us as the authors to ensure that our manuscripts are as clean as possible before we send them to the editor, because one, you're going to respect the editor's time. Two, the editor's going to be able to do better work for you if your manuscript is cleaner. They're going to catch stuff that they might not have caught if they're correcting commas every 5 seconds. All right. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I just think that, you know, I guess an editor has a right to not take what they want to take, right? But I don't know. I mean, unless the stuff that people are sending is just like god awful, voice to text transcribed. I mean, you really shouldn't be able to tell the difference at the end of the day, because as the author, you're going to have to go back through it and edit it and revise it. You know, what difference does it make? That's just me. All right. Okay, Martha says Mac OS update allows editing while dictating. Oh, cool. I'll have to look into that. That's cool. And then Love to Write says, I tried dictating, and mostly I have lots of ums. Yeah, you could probably fix that with a macro. I know macros are not the sexiest thing in the world, but they really do work wonders when it comes to dictating. Let's see. Love to Write, do you use a planner to plan your writing? What do you do to stay focused every day? I don't use a planner, you know, and it's funny you mentioned that. Your question is really timely because I was looking at planners yesterday. I've tried to get on the physical planner bandwagon, but I just can't do it. And there's just always been a few reasons why physical planners don't work for me. First is that I have a work calendar and I have a personal calendar, and I feel like they're very dynamic, like they're always changing. So I never know what my day is going to look like. And the other part is that my calendars don't talk to each other. So I've got like a work ecosystem, and then I've got my personal like writing ecosystem. And I would just like to be able to put all of that in one place. But then just to put all of that in a physical calendar just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work. And then the other problem I have with physical planners is that you have to carry them around with you. And if I find that like when someone says, hey, I'll meet you at 3 o'clock somewhere, or I have a to-do list item, like I have to write that down right away. And I'm not always in a situation where I've got like a physical planner. So yesterday I was looking for like a planner that I could use on like my phone or like an iPad or something, to where, I could actually get prompted to put, update my planner every day. And I wasn't really that terribly impressed with those either. I know some folks have recommended some different apps to me over the last few months that I'll probably try out. But yeah, I don't know what it is about planners that just they don't work with my chemistry. And you would think that they would, just with my personality type, but they just don't for some reason. I just haven't found the right combo. So what do I do to stay focused every day? Well, one of the things that I do to hold myself accountable is that I do a blog post every night telling everybody what I did during the day, just at a high level. And so I find that having to write all that down keeps me accountable and forces me to say, oh, I got to do something today. And I stay motivated because of my strategic priorities, like I mentioned earlier. I'm very big on doing the most important things and doing those really, really well. And that keeps me focused and it keeps me engaged. Okay. Sean says, this goes back to about 10 minutes ago. Matthew, this is a comment to you. To download Apache OpenOffice. Try that. Yeah, that's what I had originally had suggested. I don't think I suggested OpenOffice. I think I said LibreOffice. I always get them mixed up. Okay, Matthew, I do live videos the first Saturday of every month at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. Okay, Ms., this question is directed at Jonathan. How comfortable are you with this editor otherwise? Because you and they may not be a good fit. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you want an editor that's gonna be okay with your writing style, and if they start saying stuff like that, to me, that's a red flag. Okay, let's see. Wyland says the biggest issue with dictating, which I'm working on, is that I don't speak very clearly, even when I think I'm speaking clearly. Yeah, Wyland, that's a really good comment, because I think a lot of people when they think of dictating, like they think that the story has to come out like your tongue is golden, like exactly how you speak it is exactly how it's going to flow onto the page. It's going to sound great, and the reality is that it's just not that way at all. I can dictate anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 words a day. And you really should hear one of my dictation sessions. It's choppy. There's interruptions. Sometimes it takes me a long time to figure out what I'm going to say in the middle of a sentence. Like it's kind of a mess, but it works out. It works out because the transcription just takes out all the pauses. It doesn't. Dragon doesn't care if you're walking along and it takes you 2 minutes to finish a sentence. Doesn't care. All right. So I think just remember that it's not going to sound how you think it's going to sound. And if you actually listen to people dictate, I think that is very eye-opening. So I might do that. I might at some point find a way to share one of my dictation audio files so you all can hear it and just how choppy my sessions are. And if you want to hear an example of somebody who I think has this on lock, they've got it completely mastered, listen to some of Kevin J. Anderson's dictation sections if you ever have a chance. I don't know how he manages to do it, but he manages to dictate like I'm talking to you right now. Like it comes out real smooth. But I think for most people, it's not that way. Okay. Yeah, Love to Write says, I use my phone calendar all the time, but I love my physical planner. Yeah, and I love the concept of physical planners. I really do. I just can't, I haven't been able to figure out how to make it practical for me because I've always got my phone on my pocket, but I don't always have a physical planner handy. Okay. Aletta says, I don't need a planner. I keep everything I need on Scrivener. And yeah, Scrivener is a very good alternative to doing that. Okay, Love to Write. I belong to a writer sprint group that keeps me on task, and that's good. And that's a really good thing. However you keep yourself accountable is a good thing, as long as you keep yourself accountable, as long as it works. Okay. Yeah, Jay Williams says, some people just have the gift of gab. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. One day I hope I can get to that point. And I've been doing some training and trying to be a little bit more. I'm trying to focus on improving my speed, finishing my sentences faster, enunciating a little bit better. But it's definitely a process. All right, Wyland says, I'd love to hear some of your dictation sessions. If you could load sessions and show the final version of a chapter, it'd be really educational. Yeah, I might do that. Let me think on that, Wyland. I'm gonna write that, or I'm gonna put it on my to-do list. I have a to-do list in Notepad, dictation sessions. That would actually be a really good blog post. So maybe what I can do is I'll have to figure out how to do it, because I think you all are probably going to want to hear fiction dictated, not nonfiction. So I think I might have a chapter from a recent novel that I could do, and I would make it probably like a 2 or 3 minute sample. I'll think about it. You got me thinking, Wyland. That's a really good idea. All right. So with that, folks, I'm not seeing any more questions. So remember, next Power Hour is Saturday, December 3rd. I will see you back then. But in the meantime, happy NaNoWriMo and have a wonderful day. Happy writing, everybody.